Welcome to episode 416 of How Women Are Oppressed by Their Own Life Decisions. Today, we'll be examining how student debt is sexist. Women get a raw deal on student debt. It takes women about 2 years longer than men to pay off student loans. Oh, great. Another item I can add to the list of things that women are shit at. So as usual, we'll start off the article with an anecdote that's supposed to make us feel sorry for someone's own life decisions. Curry Oglesby, geez, I hope that's your real name, knows the challenges firsthand of trying to pay down her debt and also plan for her future. It's not like I have savings right now, she said. The 30-year-old graduated from Howard University in 2009 during the depths of the economic downturn with more than $20,000 in debt and struggled to get a job in public health. So Oglesby kept her retail job and crammed into an apartment with multiple roommates in an effort to afford her expenses. But often her pay, which was largely based on commission, wasn't enough to cover her debt. She moved around a few times, missing loan payments and mailed warnings, and ultimately her student loan slid into default, a credit-altering event, and debt collectors started garnishing her wages to repay the debt. I basically just put my hands up in the air because I felt like at least it's getting paid, she said. Yeah, there's a lesson in there for everyone. Loans, it turns out, shock horror, have to be repaid. And here's another tip. The quicker you repay them, the less you have to pay. And we don't know this girl's personal circumstances. It's made to sound like she's living on a shoestring budget. But is she? Her wages are now being garnished. But she's not out on the street, because if she was, I'm sure that would have been part of the sob story. So she willfully ignored her loan, probably because that would have interfered with her lifestyle, and now she's being forced to pay it back. And her reaction is not a bad one. She is right, at least it's being paid back now. But the point here is, this is not a victim in any way. This is someone whose life's decisions are now catching up to them. Strange how that works, isn't it? Yeah, you graduated at one of the worst times in recent history, but remember whom that 8.2 million net job losses affected the most? Well, you probably don't, but it was dubbed the man session. And why was that? Well, nearly a quarter of the jobs were lost in construction and just over another quarter in manufacturing. This article is from 2010, and as an economist at Moody's noted, the long-term unemployed are weighted towards men. Industries that employ a large proportion of men are being hurt, whereas industries that employ a large proportion of women, like education and healthcare, are being less affected by the downturn. In fact, more than 880,000 jobs have been created in education and health services since the start of the Great Recession. And here's a chart. The recession started in December 2007, and 2 years later you can see that education and health services was one of the few industries that actually added jobs. So to Curry Oglesby, if that really is your name, and the author of this tripe, I say to you, here is the world's smallest violin, and it's playing just for you. About 2/3 of the nation's outstanding student debt is held by women, according to estimates published Wednesday by the American Association of University Women, a non-profit advocacy organisation focused on women in education. Sorry, let me rephrase that. A women's advocacy group focused on shifting blame for women's life decisions onto other people, probably white men. What's more, women are more indebted than men by basically every measure. They're more likely to take on loans to attend college, and when they do, they tend to borrow more and take longer to pay back those debts. The findings add to the growing body of evidence that women and minority students are disproportionately affected by the increasing cost of college, and as a result, may not reap as large of a financial benefit from their degree. And what is that growing body of evidence cited by the author? Oh look, it's another article written by the same victim of the patriarchy, which boils down to this. The dearth of women and minorities in these high-paying fields only exacerbates the gaps between the groups and their white male colleagues, in part because the lower pay means it takes them longer to dig out of their student debt. But of course, nowhere in that article does it suggest people are actually responsible for the choices they make. If you can understand that certain types of occupations pay less than others, then at what point does it become your responsibility to choose appropriately? It's all very well to say follow your passion or follow your interests, but following your interests doesn't entitle you to a good paying job. Let me quote a man of colour.
What advice would you give a young Thomas Sowell? How do you make something of yourself as an African American in America today?
The way anybody else would. You equip yourself with skills that people are willing to pay for.
What an oppressive idea. Anyway, let's get back to this tale of self-indulgent blame shifting. But instead of reading out the grade school prose of this victim, let me just list the reasons for why women are good at accumulating student debt and not paying it back. Women make up the bulk of college students and graduates, victims of their own success. The pay gap, which of course women could close if they decided to major in computer engineering instead of underwater basket weaving. Childcare, pushing up their loan balances, which of course disproportionately impacts women. The pay gap, again, just in case you didn't get it the first time. And of course, unconscious bias, that speculative notion based on shaky science and that has not been proven to actually affect action or behaviour in the real world. But all of these so-called reasons could just be lumped under one category: life choices. Choices that were entirely your responsibility. So I have just one question for the author of this trash and women like her. Are women responsible for any of the outcomes of the decisions that they make? Or is it always someone else's fault? So is it possible for feminists to take responsibility for their life choices, or will it forever be the fault of the patriarchy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.